Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. A 15-year-old boy has died after a stabbing at a Sheffield school. Another 15-year-old has been arrested.
Our officers will remain on scene and in the local area to offer reassurance to parents, staff and local residents as our investigation continues.
We'll be live in Sheffield with the latest on that story. Also tonight, tradespeople from Yorkshire call for tougher action against thieves who steal their tools. Young photographer Liz Hatton, who died last year, has some of her work auctioned off to raise money for cancer research. And we'll hear from the Sheffield woman who's become the first woman of colour to row solo across the Atlantic.
It's been a pleasant start to the week, hasn't it? Most of us saw some spells of sunshine, but what about the week ahead? Well, I'll be back later in a programme with a look at the week ahead and into next week too.
Hello, good evening, and joining us for the first Look North of the week. We start with the devastating news that a 15-year-old boy has died after being stabbed at a school in Sheffield. He was seriously injured at All Saints Catholic High near the city centre just after midday and died shortly after. Another 15-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Let's get the latest now from our reporter Tom Ingle, who is at the scene. Tom.
Amy, what a truly horrific story. The start of a working week at the school shattered and torn apart in the most unbelievably awful way. I'm standing on Granville Road in Sheffield. The school is about a couple of hundred metres down the hill. About half an hour ago, police dropped the cordon here, which means the road has reopened for traffic. And it also means young people have begun to gather at the gates of the school and lay flowers, light candles, attach balloons to the railings, in a sign of the community coming together after just an incomprehensible piece of violence that happened just after lunchtime today. Emergency services called here just before 12:30 to an incident. They confirmed just 3 hours later that a 15-year-old boy had died and another 15-year-old had been arrested on suspicion of murder. This is what the police had to say at a press conference this afternoon.
Our thoughts are with the family of the boy, his friends and the whole school community. We know that what has happened will cause significant distress and concern. I would like to reassure you that our officers will remain on scene and in the local area to offer reassurance to parents, staff and local residents as our investigation continues. Although we are in the early stages of our inquiries, we are working at pace to build a full picture of how this tragedy has unfolded. We urge you to be mindful that there are loved ones at the centre of this, and they are grieving the profound loss of a teenage boy in the most devastating of circumstances. We would therefore ask you to avoid speculation and the sharing of online content which could be distressing to them and detrimental to our investigation. We urge anyone with any information that they believe can assist us to get in touch.
Now, there's an awful lot of speculation building up online about the precise circumstances of this afternoon's incident, but what we can confirm is that South Yorkshire Police visited the school last Wednesday on the 29th of January because of an incident involving two pupils and threats of violence. We cannot confirm and we do not know who those pupils were and if there is any connection at all to today's incident. But reaction has begun to swirl in the local community, people paying their own tributes, pouring out respect on social media to the people who've died. And we've also heard from a knife crime campaigner who wanted to discuss his reaction to what had happened and how we get young people to put down knives.
It's upsetting, heartbreaking, another young life gone.
How do we get young people to put down knives they're carrying?
We have to educate them, let them know the consequences, find the underlying issues, understand that knife crime is a result of conflict, so conflict management, understanding the behaviours, and, you know, talk to them on a level and be open for them to talk to you and tell, so you can listen to their worries as well. Young people just want to feel safe. It's very important. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the second most important thing is to feel safe. And do you think enough's being done for these young people to feel safe? Because I don't. And this is why they're trying to take it into their own hands.
We've not yet heard officially from the school, but we have seen a statement in the local newspaper where the head teacher describes his shock and sorrow. We were down outside the front of the school a few minutes ago and we saw teachers leaving, staff leaving, clearly a number of people in a deep sense of shock tonight. We have had it confirmed that the school will remain closed tomorrow.
Tom, thank you. Well, the MP for the local area is Louise Haigh. A short time ago, she gave me her reaction to this awful incident.
Well, it's absolutely horrific and heartbreaking news to learn of the death of this 15-year-old from All Saints High School. No family should send their child out to school and never see them again. So all my thoughts are with his family and his friends and the entire school community at All Saints, who I know will be reeling from this tragic attack.
What are you hearing about the impact that this is having on the local community?
Well, understandably, people are reeling all over Sheffield at this news, and people are really worried. South Yorkshire Police have confirmed that there's no ongoing risk and there is a teenager in custody following the arrest. But people will have questions that will need to be answered now about how this happened, and I will be working with the council, with the police and with all agencies across Sheffield to make sure that those questions are answered.
Louise Haigh, one of those questions will be, how did a knife get onto the school premises when parents assume their children go to school? It's a safe place to be. Do schools need to review their security?
Well, there will be a criminal investigation underway now, and it's important that that happens. A teenager is in custody, but of course there will have to be serious questions asked and answered about how this was allowed to happen. And I think it's really important that the council, the police and the government come together to make sure that this happens, to ensure that this can never happen again. No family should send their child out to school and never see them again. And we must all now come together to make sure that anything preventable in this case never happens again.
Is the government taking knife crime seriously enough?
I know that the government's defining mission is about tackling violence, both against women and girls and across the country, resourcing our police properly, but also making sure that schools and youth services and local authorities are properly resourced to tackle violence. Unfortunately, this has happened today. We now need to make sure that we learn the lessons from it, but nothing will return that boy to his grieving family, and all my thoughts and prayers are with him and with all those who loved him.
Louise Haigh, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, this all comes as a man was jailed for 15 years for his part in the killing of this teenager in Leeds. 18-year-old Jamie Mear was stabbed in a taxi and dragged into the streets by a gang in Armley. Our Home Affairs correspondent Emma Glasby sent this report from Leeds Crown Court.
Jamie Mear was just 18 when he was killed in broad daylight in the street in Armley. The court heard this was a dispute between two gangs dealing drugs. Jamie and another teenager were dragged out of a taxi and attacked. Jamie ran for help, but he died in the garden of a nearby house from a stab wound to his thigh. Now, Ranai Wilkes, who's 23, had admitted being at the scene with three other men, but said that he never got out of the car. He was cleared of murder, but he was convicted of manslaughter and wounding with intent and has been sentenced to 15 years in prison. Now, Wilkes and the three other men left the country after the killing, but Wilkes came back and he was arrested at Leeds Bradford Airport after flying in from Turkey. The other three men wanted by police, Caleb Orr, Akwe Jeffers and Inam Nishat, remain at large. The detective who's been leading the investigation spoke outside court this afternoon.
We are working hard with the Crown Prosecution Service to bring these other suspects to justice. We believe they are out of the country and we believe that somebody out there will know where they are. I would urge them to come forward and tell us the whereabouts of Enam Nishat, Caleb Orr and Akwe Jeffers.
Ranai Wilkes, who is starting his prison sentence tonight, is the brother of Rotherham United footballer Malik Wilkes. He is also the brother of Raheem Wilkes, who was killed in a shooting in Leeds in 2017. The judge said to Ranai Wilkes today, of all people, that ought to have led you away from violence and violent people. Now, we heard in court today that Jamie's girlfriend gave birth to his son after Jamie had died. She stood up in court today and said that her world had literally stopped when Jamie was killed. Jamie's mother, in her statement, said, "I just wish people would put the knives down."
Emma Glasby there. Next tonight, cutting down on crime. Tradesmen and women have gathered in Westminster to highlight the impact tool theft is having on the industry. In the past year, there were more than 4,000 cases reported to police in Yorkshire. West Yorkshire has the second highest rate of theft in the country, with tools worth £3 million taken in just 12 months. Now, nationally, just a tiny fraction of people ever see any of their tools again, with just 6% getting some of their stolen equipment returned. And as Phil Bodman's been finding out, it's not just the financial cost of replacing tools that has an impact.
In broad daylight and in full view of CCTV, thieves brazenly attempt to steal tools from a joiner in the midst of a job in Doncaster. For tradespeople, the scale of the problem is having a major impact on their livelihoods. Andy, a Sheffield-based plumber, has had his van broken into several times in recent years. He's calling for stiffer penalties for those convicted of theft.
We have extra locks on our vans, we have extra alarms on our vans, we have van vaults in our vans, which are like a van vault which you lock, put all your tools in, so they can't actually get in, they're made of steel. So, you know, the things that you have to go to just to make sure that your tools are safe, so you can actually go and do your blooming job.
Today, hundreds of traders set off for Westminster to rally Parliament about the problem.
Tool theft is a big issue, right? This is livelihoods you're playing with. How can it be acceptable for you to break into vans, drill holes, rip doors off? This is our offices. This is what we work from. It's got to stop. People are fed up. They've had enough. This is 5-6 times these people have been broken into. Crime reference numbers, don't cut it anymore.
We built your hospitals, your homes, your schools, your doctors. We wouldn't be able to do it without our power tools.
Among those taking part in today's protest in London was Ben Smallwood, a heating engineer from Leeds. He had £5,000 worth of equipment stolen from the back of his van.
We're just here to get more done or more action done against people that steal tools from tradespeople's vans. Stronger sentencing, stronger fines, a little bit more done about it, more looking into it, more trying to recover them tools.
According to data collated by Monster Mesh, construction and branding specialists, studies suggest the construction industry loses more than £400 million a year due to vandalism and theft.
When they break into your van, they'll either rip the door off, cut it open, so you're then left without a van because it's got to go in to be mended. The last time I got done, they ripped the door off. It cost £2,500 to fix it, but it was off road for 5 weeks, and obviously I'm now working out of a car fitting a central heating system. It's not much fun.
The government says it understands the impact this crime has on victims who rely on equipment to earn a living. It will continue to explore ways to tackle the issue. For people like Andy and fellow traders, it's time ministers tooled up to finally fix the thieves. Phil Bodmer, BBC Look North.
Let's get some other news coming into the newsroom now. Police are continuing to question the husband of a Thai woman whose body was found in the Yorkshire Dales more than 20 years ago. Lamduan Armitage remained unidentified for 15 years until there was a breakthrough in the case. Her family saw a BBC News report and came forward. Lamduan's husband, 61-year-old David Armitage, had been living in Thailand but was arrested on suspicion of murder shortly after landing back in the UK at the weekend. It's emerged that a man from Huddersfield was killed by a Russian drone strike in Ukraine last year. 18-year-old James Wilton was fighting on the front line when he was hit and killed by an exploding drone just minutes into his first mission. The volunteer had joined a group of international fighters supporting Ukraine in the war effort. Now, a group of Yorkshire MPs are warning that abuse and threats towards them and their staff are getting worse and putting people off going into politics. They say women tend to receive more abuse than men, and one has told us it made her fear for her life. Our political editor, James Vincent, reports.
In the last 6 years, 9 of our MPs have seen people convicted for threatening or harassing them, and that's just the cases that have gone to court. 3 separate convictions had the same victim.
I have feared for my life. There was one time where I did have to ring 999, and at that point I felt there was a real risk because I thought somebody was literally outside my house. Islamophobia, misogyny, the racism, threats to life, it's just become quite normal. If you happen to then be a female, that's an added bonus, if you like. And then if you happen to be a female of colour, that adds to it. And then if you happen to be Muslim, it's even worse. So yes, there's layers upon layers. Just stop looking at Twitter because it's just not good for my mental health. But then when you have somebody who confronts you in the street, then you have no choice, and that does affect your mental health.
The level of abuse and nastiness now is I would say, worse than ever. I just think sometimes we've lost that balance of disagreeing well and having that debate, but actually then it descends into, personal insults, threats, abuse, intimidation, and that's when I worry.
I speak to MPs about this all of the time. I think I've spoken to every single one of ours about the abuse and some of the threats that they get. One told me that they were punched. Another told me it was part of the reason why they decided to stand down at the last election. Some are actually more worried about their families and their staff members than they are about themselves. And although some will talk in front of a camera, some say that the abuse is so bad that there's no way that they'd go on the telly talking about it because they know then it will get much worse.
New MPs are now finding out what it's like.
I wasn't an MP back in 2016, but I speak to more senior members who say that at the moment the mood is even more toxic and threatening than even during kind of very heated debate during Brexit. People should be able to criticise their MP or have rigorous debate. And social media has just made it 10 times worse. So I don't get even half the abuse that women get, for example. But, one member of my staff has been targeted by online trolls. And I know that made her think about whether she wants to carry on working politics. Now, she's a brilliant young woman who really cares about making improvements in her area and wants to work as part of a team to do that. And she was nearly put off doing it by anonymous trolls online. Now, that's pretty shocking.
Indeed, a shocking insight there into the abuse that MPs suffer. Jake Richards ending that report there from James Vincent. Time for sport now with Sally. Had my first Sheffield Steelers experience yesterday.
Enjoy it?
Loved it. Whoosh, whoosh. If you're a Steelers fan, you'll know what that means.
Exactly. But let's start first with the Sheffield woman who has pushed herself to the limit over the last 52 days alone at sea. Ananya Prasad said she wanted to break barriers and become the first woman of colour to row solo across the ocean. On Saturday, she completed that challenge, a 3,000-mile voyage across the Atlantic. I caught up with her earlier from Antigua and asked her whether the event, called the world's toughest row, lived up to its name.
So it's a 3,000-mile rowing event across the Atlantic, and I think honestly it should be called the world's toughest obstacle course because it's so much more than just a row. It requires a lot of digging deep mentally, ability to fix things, a lot of technical skills involved in this. So it's been quite a journey with a lot of things breaking and difficult weather conditions and weather patterns, and it's been so much more than just the physical rowing aspect. So it's definitely lived up to its name as the world's toughest row.
You said you wanted to be the first woman of colour to row across the ocean solo. You've achieved that. Why was that so important to you?
It's not about being the first woman of colour. It's about saying, okay, I'm different. I don't come from a nautical background. Perhaps I come from a different background traditionally to the sport. But if I can do it, anyone can do anything that they want to.
What about the highlights for you? Crossing that finish line, I imagine.
It was incredibly surreal and quite overwhelming. I wasn't expecting to have that kind of reception. So it was lovely to see other rowers as well in the event that had crossed the Atlantic in the same event and see family and friends. So it was a very special moment.
What's the first thing you're going to do now? Sleep or eat?
Probably both. I've definitely quite missed fresh food and especially vegetables and fruit. So I've had a lot of fruit in the last couple of days, and catching up on sleep as well. So it's great to be back and just appreciate the things that I didn't appreciate before, like being able to have a hot shower and not having to make water and just have it come out of a tap. So things like that have been great.
Well, congratulations on your incredible achievement and enjoy your time in Antigua.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
What a woman. Now to football, and there was a stunning 7-0 victory for Leeds at Ellen Road in a demolition job over Cardiff City on Saturday. In what was one of the most one-sided games this season, Brendan Aronson started things off with the first goal at 6 minutes, with Manor Solomon scoring the second. In the second half, there were goals from Dan James, Joel Peru, and this from Willie Nonto and Matteo Joseph, before Peru added insult to injury in the dying moments of added time to make it 7 in total. Leeds are Championship League leaders and playing like they're already in the Premier League. But snapping at their heels are Sheffield United, who secured a 1-0 victory over Derby County to keep within 2 points of Leeds in the table. It was Ben Brereton Diaz with the goal, and that top of the table battle for automatic promotion continues. Elsewhere in the Championship, Sheffield Wednesday drew 1-1 with Luton. In League One, there was a draw for Barnsley, whilst Rotherham and Huddersfield both lost. In League Two, though, things are hotting up for Doncaster Rovers in their promotion push as they won 2-1 against the MK Dons. It was Rob Street with the winner, securing a 4th consecutive league victory for the Rovers, cutting the gap on leaders Walsall to 7 points. And on transfer deadline day, you can keep up with all the latest deals on BBC Local Radio. Radio Leeds are hosting their Don't Go to Bed Just Yet special, live from 10 p.m. till midnight. And Radio Sheffield will also be on air from 10 till 12. You can watch both of them on the BBC Sport website and app. To Rugby League now, and in the Challenge Cup tie between Keighley Cougars and York Knights, it was York who booked their place in the third round with a 72-12 win. Liam Harris scored a hat-trick of tries to help York to victory. They will now face 2024 Super League Grand Finalists Hull Kingston Rovers at home on Friday. A big game for them, that. Back to you, Amy.
Indeed, thanks very much. Now, you may remember Liz Hatton. She's the 17-year-old photographer from Harrogate who sadly died recently after developing a rare cancer, desmoplastic small round cell tumour. While some of her beautiful work, you can see some of it here, has been auctioned off over the weekend to raise money for research into the disease. Her incredible family were there, and the auction has raised thousands of pounds towards the cause, bringing their total fundraising effort to more than £80,000. Michelle Lyons joined them.
In just a few months, 17-year-old Liz Hatton made her mark as a talented photographer before passing away in November. The North Yorkshire teenager began a photography bucket list appeal in January last year after being diagnosed with cancer, and got to photograph some high-profile people before she died, including the Prince of Wales at Windsor Castle. Her legacy now lives on through her photographs, and over the weekend her family auctioned off some of her prints in their hometown of Harrogate to raise money for more research into the rare cancer which Liz died from.
We are hoping to be a little closer today to our goal of 100,000 that we need to raise in order to do our first piece of research, which will bring together information from all over the world about desmoplastic small round cell tumour into one usable document for physicians.
As the auction got underway, the tension mounted and the bids came flooding in, many from online buyers.
Go on, £100 bid. We're away at the £100 bid.
Liz had been embraced by the photographic community nationally, but the fact that she was a local girl, there was a real resonance there, so it's hugely important to be able to support local causes.
One of the bidders was Ernesto Agata, who'd known Liz briefly before she died.
The photography community got together and everybody was so lovely to Liz, and she was a very talented photographer. And today I bought one of her portraits, a portrait of the actor Marilyn Labari, and that will go on the wall in my new flat actually in London.
A successful day for Liz's family, who are now one step closer to their £100,000 fundraising target.
Just the kind of excitement about it and so many people watching it and hearing her name and seeing her as a photographer first would have meant so much to her and therefore meant so much to us. And obviously we've raised £1,000 for research as well, which is incredible and which we're utterly delighted with.
Now Liz's legacy will be enjoyed in homes and galleries across the country, as well as raising funds for a very good cause. Michelle Lyons, BBC Look North, Harrogate.
Such a talented girl Lizzie was, and her family are just so incredible, aren't they, to be there putting on a brave face. The gorgeous Keely is with us now. I've not seen you for ages,
You're very
Keely.
kind, aren't you? Is that because I brought you some nice weather today?
Well, that does always help.
I know. And actually, we've got the January stats in, and it's been the 5th sunniest January on record, with well above average amounts of sunshine for parts of Yorkshire. It was also slightly cooler than average. Spare a thought for the surfers rather than me. The sea temperature at the moment is about 5 or 6 degrees, but there was some sunshine overhead. It has been a pleasant day. Our next picture, an asperitas cloud. Asperitas, I think I've got that right.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, you can see the undulating shape of it there. So that was a nice one coming in from the Combe Valley. You can get your weather pictures coming into the BBC Weather Watchers page, or we're on Instagram, keely.donovan. Actually, a lot of dry and fine weather to come this week, except for tomorrow. There will be some rain, very light and patchy for most of us through the afternoon. It'll also be cloudier and breezier than today. It's a cold front. It's going to weaken as it spreads eastwards, but it will introduce cooler air for the rest of the week. We'll see a return to overnight frost. We'll also have high pressure building in from the south, so some fine weather to come. Hopefully, it'll be a sunny high, but there will be some mist and fog for the mornings, and then it'll become really quite chilly into next weekend and beyond. So we were in between two areas of thicker cloud, and we got some brighter, sunnier spells through today, and it's actually not too bad out there through this evening and overnight. I think the breeze will pick up a little, so there won't be any mist and fog problems overnight tonight, and we'll see a bit more cloud spreading into western parts, but we'll keep some of the clear spells, and temperatures will fall back to around 3 or 4 degrees at the coolest, but generally around 5 or 6 degrees. Let's have a quick look at those high water times. Just gone 8 o'clock in Whitby tomorrow morning, and then 8 minutes past 8 tomorrow evening. So there'll be some brightness around first thing, even some sunshine in the east. But the breeze will pick up through tomorrow and cloud will thicken from the northwest. We'll see the rain just moving onto the hills, and then it'll fizzle as it moves eastwards later in the afternoon. So it'll become light and patchy away from the hills. A breezy day. A gusty southwesterly breeze, and temperatures above average for the time of year, 10 or 11 degrees. Don't get used to it. It's cooling down through the week, particularly into next weekend. Some mist and fog. Otherwise, it's dry and fine with some spells of sunshine, Amy.
Did you say 4 degrees in that sea?
So about 5 or 6 probably, yes.
Tropical, that. 1 degree on Friday.
You like it.
It was cold, that water on Friday, it surely was.
You're brave.
That is it from us. Abijayla with your late news. Bye-bye for now.